The New Norm is brought to you by Winning at Home. I'm Steve Norman. Welcome to The New Norm. About 20 years ago, when my sister Sue and her husband Joe and their young son were living in Chicago, they owned a multi-level home. So they lived on an upper floor, and some renters were living on the first level. And one night, her husband Joe awoke to the smell of smoke. Now, later, they would learn that one of the renters had dropped a lit cigarette near a couch, and it caught on fire that eventually moved to the drapes and started to engulf that whole first floor. So when the smoke started rolling into the bedroom, Joe didn't flinch. "Sue," he said, "get up. There's a fire. We need to get out." And so she snatched the baby out of the crib, and they made their way out an exterior staircase together. The restoration process ended up being a major headache, but everyone escaped without injury. Their story reminds me of another Joseph and his family that's recorded in Matthew's gospel in the second chapter. We read that Joseph, Mary, and their infant son Jesus are living in Bethlehem when they are visited by wise men or magi from the east. And then we pick up the story here in Matthew chapter 2, verses 13 and 14. When they, the wise men, had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said. "Take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." A little bit later, we read this in verses 19 through 23. After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who are trying to take the child's life are dead." So he got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in the place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee. And he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets, that he would be called a Nazarene. So look at the angelic messages, these warnings that Joseph gets again. In the first one, it's get up, take the child and his mother, go to Egypt. It's not safe for you here. And then some months, maybe even some years later, they hear this message, get up, take the child and his mother, go back to Israel. The danger is gone now. And when he gets back to Judea, he realizes it's not safe. The passage said he was afraid to go there, and having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to Galilee. So Judea is closer to the Egyptian border. That was his first stop. When he realized it wasn't safe to remain there, he pushed another 60 miles north to get to the Galilee. So there's two thoughts here. The first is that God often reveals his plan to us in stages and not all at once. When God told Joseph and Mary to go to Israel, he didn't say where. He just said, go back there. But once they were in Judea, God revealed the second part of that equation was like your ultimate destination is Galilee. And I've learned in my own life that sometimes if we say, hey, God, give me all 5 steps, God's like, hey, I'll give you one. Be faithful with that one, and then I'll reveal the next step to you in sequence. So the first thought, God often reveals his plan in stages, not all at once. The second thought is God sometimes speaks to us through our fears, which is a little bit strange to accept. Because I don't know about you, but I grew up in a no fear, faith over fear, all fear is wrong kind of mentality. We're often conditioned to see all fear is bad, or fear is a distraction, or fear as an attack of the enemy, fear is spiritual warfare, or fear as evidence of doubt. But if what God tells us in Matthew chapter 2 is true, then not all fear is bad or wrong or unspiritual. Sometimes fear is God's prompting for us to avoid or escape an unhealthy or even dangerous scenario. Joseph's story teaches us that God sometimes calls us to leave environments for our own well-being and safety. Sometimes God will call you out of a relationship that's unhealthy, or a church that's dysfunctional, or a job that is unethical, or an environment that is unsafe, at least for a season. About 10 years ago, I got the sense that I needed to leave a job at a church that I had been a part of for years. Good congregation, great opportunity, amazing city. But to leave that church would have meant I would need to leave that town. We would need to up and move from that entire environment. And when I had grown up, I grew up in one house for my entire young adult life, from birth until when I finally left home at 20, lived in the same 2-story red brick colonial. And I had always thought that like families that didn't move, or like dads that created a stability for families where kids didn't have to move, that was the ideal scenario. And somewhere I got baked into my brain, which isn't biblical at any level, that success, or like having arrived in life, means that you never have to move again, that you put down roots, that you're comfortable, and you live out the rest of your days there. And I remember interviewing for another job during that time and explaining that my situation to the lead pastor at the church that I was applying for. And he said this to me, I'll never forget it. He goes, "Run." He goes, "If you stay, it will be dangerous for your soul and your family." And I remember driving back from Saugatuck, Michigan, all the way back to the northern suburbs of Detroit with those lines just bouncing around in my head. And I think that what I heard in that moment was wisdom. I didn't have a visit from an angel, but I did get a piece of advice from a ministry veteran who said to run. And so we did. And even though that was almost 10 years ago, it's been hard. But when I look back, I realize that the things that were bad then would have only gotten worse if we had stayed. And the price for staying, at least in that season, would have been higher than the price that we paid for leaving. Sometimes, as much as I hate to say it, leaving, running, fleeing, escaping is the only wise option. And sometimes it's necessary for our survival in a season. Look at Genesis chapter 26. We read this. "Now there was a famine in the land," the promised land, "besides the previous famine in Abraham's time. And Isaac, Abraham's son, went to Abimelech, the king of the Philistines in Gerar. And the Lord appeared to Isaac and said, 'Don't go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in this land for a while, and I will be with you, and I will bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands, and will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give them all these lands. And through your offspring, all the nations on the earth will be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed me and did everything I required of him, keeping my commands, my decrees, and my instructions.' So Isaac stayed in Gerar. Like Joseph, Isaac leaves his homeland because of a very real threat to his family's well-being. God says, 'Stay in this intermediate space for a while. I will be with you, and I will bless you.' And I love that God lets him know that his time with the Philistines is a season. It's not a sentence. He's not going to be in the land of his neighbors forever. He's just there for now. And even though his circumstance is different, God's faithfulness remains the same. He says, 'I will be with you and I will bless you.' And God is with him. And God does bless him. We pick up the story again in verse 12. Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold because the Lord blessed him. And the man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up, filling them with earth. Then Abimelech, the king of that region, said to Isaac, 'Move away from us. You have become too powerful for us.' So Isaac moved away from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar, where he had settled." Isaac left his homeland because of a famine. And he left Gerar, which is a place where he had amazing success, because of a conflict. The text doesn't say it directly, but there's this implied threat of violence, that there's going to be combat over a limited amount of resources if he stays. It seems like both Joseph and Isaac are showing us that there are times to fight and there are times to flee. And if we trust God to direct us, we'll be able to discern which is which. And if the command is to run, know this: sometimes that is a mark of wisdom and not cowardice. I think we're all going into 2026 with wide eyes and a full heart. And maybe you're banking on your best year for your best life. And I wish all of that for you. That said, at some point in this year, you might face a threat or a famine or a loss or some jealous Philistines. And God might say to you, get up, take your family, and go somewhere else for a while. And I will be with you, and I will bless you. And that season might be hard. It might not be what you would have chosen, but that doesn't mean that it might not be wise or right or good. The New Norm is produced and distributed by Winning at Home. Winning at Home is a faith-based nonprofit committed to making individuals, couples, and families stronger through counseling and coaching. For more information, visit winningathome.com. I'm your host, Steve Norman. Thanks for listening.